So about 2 years ago, my mother, F16, 14 at the time, got diagnosed with cancer. She passed away the following year at the age of 54. Her death was really hard on my whole family, and because of my dad's instability, my brother, 35, took legal guardianship of me. I now live with his girlfriend, 2 sons 9 and 5, and my little niece who is only 1 year old in the same house I grew up in. They moved into our house. Before the switch, it was just my mom and I in our peaceful, quiet house. We were very close and had a best friend relationship. I could tell her literally anything, which she proved on many occasions. I now live in a very loud environment with constant screaming and yelling. They gave me chores to do 6 days out of the week, where I have to clean the kitchen every weeknight and the bathroom on Saturdays. I have never had set chores to do, and while I do not mind helping out at all, I feel like they really just dumped it on me. I have the busiest schedule in the house since my brother isn't quite moved in, and his girlfriend is literally a stay-at-home. I come home from school so tired and have pretty bad depression, so I do not want to wait until 9-10 when everybody is done using the kitchen every day after school. It's ridiculous. If I don't do the dishes, she doesn't do them and lets them build up for me for the next day. The kitchen is often a mess, and there are always little surprises for me in there, which we will get to in a second. My brother hasn't fully moved in yet and still lives at their old house, but stays frequent nights with us. So mostly it's just his girlfriend, the kids, and this past year was my junior year, and I will admit that I rebelled quite a bit this year. I went through a skipping period, which is really the only thing they know about, and most of the other stuff I've done, they're completely clueless to, so in their eyes, I'm a pretty good kid. Soon after my mom died, I started seeing these weird bugs around the house. On the first day of school, I woke up with bites on my stomach, and after doing research, I saw that the bugs resembled roaches and the bites roach bites. I told my brother that I thought we had roaches and showed him my bites. He was appalled and called an exterminator, who told him that those types of roaches are outside roaches and won't be a problem, and that was that. But not really. As the year went on, I watched as my house became more and more infested by these nasty roaches that mainly only came out at night. I watched them increase in size and number, and I have admittedly seen some of the biggest roaches ever. I stopped inviting friends over. My house was the hangout spot before my mom passed. I often held my pee at night because I was scared to travel anywhere outside my room. And since my kitchen cleaning duties were mainly done at night, when everybody else was in their rooms chilling out, I was stuck cleaning the super messy roach zone, and they were not shy. I've had roaches jump out at me. They were mainly in the kitchen because that's where the food's at, so they were all in our drawers, cabinets, on our counters. I grew disgusted with my house. My safe place became the place I was least comfortable. I didn't say much further about the situation because 1, there's basically a full family here, and I know I'm not the only one seeing it, and 2, I wasn't taken seriously the first time. I remember the week of the SAT, we had like 3 days of standardized testing, and I was absolutely exhausted. I severely slacked on my chores that week. The girlfriend told me to do them one night, and we had a bit of a debate about it, where I shared that I use the kitchen the least, and she tried to call BS. This was very true, as most days, there were few to no dishes from me, and plenty from everyone. I found it very hard to eat much out of that roach-infested kitchen, and skipped a decent amount of meals. She then talked about how the bugs are getting bad, and how I need to get better at cleaning the kitchen, as if that's my fault or problem. My family would call the bugs beetles and just let them roam freely. I'm not even joking. They fully convinced themselves they were beetles, but I knew all along. I was forced to clean the kitchen that night, worn out and irritated, so I did go into a bit of a rage. Nothing too bad. I was just a little loud and low-key, went a little manic, but only was talking to myself and stuff. Throughout this past year, I have had some conflicts with my brother and his girlfriend. The first time was back in like January when my brother tried to force me to do CAD in robotics when I didn't want to. That day we were going to my nephew's concert at his school. He told me if I didn't do CAD, he wouldn't pay for robotics. I shut down after that because I obviously wasn't feeling heard and was stressed out. I was forced to still go to the concert even though I didn't want to, and I didn't talk to my brother, or really anyone, because I obviously wasn't in the mood. I kept my hoodie on and was just in my own world, really. They got mad at me for this, and I was grounded for it. Mind you, not even by my brother, but by his girlfriend who had little to do with it, and my frustration wasn't even aimed towards her, or really anyone except my brother. This whole ordeal sent me into a bad depressive episode where I started self-harming, and my eye twitched for like a week straight. There's been stuff in between, mainly related to communication issues and me getting overwhelmed with my emotions and lashing. Now mind you, my lashing out is nothing bad for real. I literally just lay in my bed, talk to my friends, and don't talk to anybody. I don't yell, curse, or really just directly say anything disrespectful directly. So the straw that broke the camel's back was Memorial Day weekend. The weekend before that, my brother was up really late one night and saw just how bad our infestation was. He finally took action, and we began our cleaning and exterminating process. When I tell you that first night was so bad, my brother and uncle were vacuuming roaches for hours. I'm not even kidding. My uncle didn't leave until like 3 a.m. So back to Memorial Day weekend. I have a boyfriend who I haven't really told them about yet. I knew my brother would act weird about me going to his house, and I couldn't invite him over, for obvious reasons, so I would just sneak over. My boyfriend is my best friend though, and I want to bring him around my family. So that weekend, he invited me to a barbecue at his grandma's house, which would have been so much fun. I asked my brother, and he said he'd think about it. The next day, I woke up really early and just cried. I think everything going on was just getting to me, and on top of that, I felt like I hadn't done anything with friends or to fulfill myself in weeks. I went back to sleep, then was suddenly awoken to come say hi to my sister, who I did not want to see, which is a whole other story. Then, after that, my brother told me I couldn't go to the barbecue. This really distraught me for numerous reasons. His logic for it made no sense. One reason he gave was because he didn't know him, which I get, but when I told him he and his mom could stop by and meet him, he said no, so he was contradicting himself. And I really just think this whole him having to get to know him before I went to his grandma's house is kind of dumb just due to the fact that I will be 18 next year and can literally get on Tinder and go to some random man's apartment. As much as they preach about getting me ready for the real world that's just not very real worldly to me, cause in what world is a grown adult asking for permission to go to an outing with their SO. I also felt like I could make up random girlfriends to hang out with, and it would be no questions asked. I have done it before, and not to mention the fact I like girls too, so it really just didn't make sense. Plus I know he's not going to do this with his sons, and it's really some double standard BS. Not to mention my mom was not like this at all. During the conversation with my brother, I hung up on him. Then he came downstairs talking about who TF I think I'm hanging up on, like he literally thinks he's my dad. He took my phone. Then, a few hours later, it was on my bed, so I figured he gave it back. But apparently it was one of my nephews, because a few days later, after barely coming out of my room for days and having my phone the whole time, he realized and took it back. I got it back for school that Tuesday. That day, as soon as I walked into school, due to being emotionally exhausted all weekend, I had the worst panic attack ever and ended up convincing my BF to skip with me. It was during my panic attack that I decided I wanted to go to the mental hospital. Now mind you, the week prior to that, I missed 3 days of school because of my guardians, had a field trip the day I came back, and while I did go that Friday, I had a meeting during third hour, which is my teacher, who called home to inquire about my absence. Since I have a skipping history, they thought I was skipping, even though literally most of the days were because of them, and I only actually skipped 1 day. When I came home, this totally stupid punishment was introduced where I have to set my devices on the table after school and could only use my computer for homework. Like they literally act like I'm 12, I swear. I then explained to my brother what really happened, and while he understood, they kept the punishment relating to the events from the weekend. The punishment was literally introduced because they thought I was skipping, and when they learned I wasn't, they still punished me like what? I was at wit's end, but I decided to hold out until school was out since there were only 2 weeks left and get checked into the mental institution. I was tired of letting my emotions get the best of me and knew that my inability to control them probably had underlying reasons. Those last 2 weeks were actually horrible. We were staying at their other house while we were getting ours bombed, so I didn't have my room and space. Then I was forced to be around these people I did not want to be around cause they were driving me crazy while I sat at the table to do work. Now the real icing on the cake was right before I left for the hospital. I was supposed to leave that Thursday since it was my last day, but postponed it to Friday because I wanted to hang with my man and my cousin before I left. My brother's GF told me to be home by 5. Then she was trying to give me issues talking about my brother hasn't said yes blah blah, so I texted him and confirmed, and he told me let her know. Then she started giving me attitude talking about like I said, I'll let you know when I talk to him. You don't need to tell me anything. Thank you. I was trying to get my brother to let me stay out later. Then he's talking about she told me 5. I need to learn how to take what I'm told. I'm lucky to even be doing anything and I'm on punishment when he was completely fine with me coming back at 6 before he talked to her. And mind you, I'm literally checking myself into the mental hospital to start off my summer the next day, and they're worried about this unnecessary punishment BS. So I had my cousin take me home, turned my devices in, and sat in her car for hours until she has to leave, and immediately after I went into the house I took Tylenol PM to sleep. I was so ready to go and literally was excited to go. I spent about 10 days in there, and when I got out they still had me on punishment. So I'm just trying to see like is my behavior really that bad? There's so much more I could add to the story, but it is long enough so I'm going to leave it there. I have literally had the worst year of my life, and I'm just a 16-year-old girl, which is already enough to deal with. I am highly anticipating turning 18 and getting an apartment next year. I am very ready to move out. They claim I'm not ready for the real world but forget that while my mom was sick, I'd stay weeks home alone while she was in the hospital. The switch has been so hard because my mom respected and treated me like the older teen I am, not like a 12-14-year-old. And even then, I told my mom when I had sex for the first time at 13, and she supported me. Going from where I can share and be open to where I feel like I have to sneak and hide everything is hard and confusing. They treat me like a child, then get mad when I respond like one, and then say when you act like an adult we'll treat you like one, then I do and it's like nothing. What do you think? I need to hear outsiders' POV, so please strangers on the internet I am begging you to listen extremely long story and help.